Here is Jessica with everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to have an uplifting and moving conversation about documentary film. As Mayura said, I'm Jessica Edwards. I'm a filmmaker, director, producer. I've recently also a documentary programmer for Woodstock, so thank you so much for bringing us your films. We're so happy to have you here. And I've recently become a distribution consultant because of some of the ideas we're going to talk about today. So I think before we get started and I intro to our illustrious panelist, I'd love to find out who you are. So if you're a documentary filmmaker, can you raise your hand? Okay. And if you are adjacent to a documentary filmmaker, you're a cinematographer, you're a marketing person, okay, great, composer. Are you direct distribution curious? Okay, ish. Do you know what direct distribution is? Okay, all right, great, perfect. Thank you, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. So we have been operating in a very specific sort of paradigm in documentary film that I believe is a myth. And this is the idea that there is one road, you make a film, you go into debt, you get a Sundance premiere, a streamer buys it, you make $1 bajillion, and then 1,000,000 bajillion people see your movie, and you're successful, you win an Oscar, and that's how your career goes. And I would like us to collapse that myth. And part of what our job is now, today, but also in the future, is really taking that myth and coming up with some better storytelling, since we're very good at that. So over the past 2 years, we've been trying to determine, sort of in this quote-unquote crisis, what success means and what success looks like. And some of the ways in which we've been sort of able to work backwards on that is understanding what a goal is for a particular film. And some of those goals might be in regards to money, and some of them might be in regards to awards, and some of them might be in regards to changing the world, or having a better career, or putting your kids through college, or there could be a lot of reasons that you need to get out of a film. And so what we're going to talk about today is this idea of a goal-oriented distribution, but also the idea that success can look differently in a lot of different ways. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the panel. We have some clips and fun stuff to show you, some of their wonderful work. So I'm going to actually let you all introduce yourselves, because that will make my life easier, but also you'll be able to talk about what you want to talk about. So let's just start right here with Geeta Ganbir. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Geeta Ganbir, and I'm a filmmaker. I have a company called Message Pictures, and I have a film here at Woodstock called The Perfect Neighbor.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Goldman. I have a company called Motto Pictures with my partner, Christopher Clements, and we have a film here called Selena y los Dinos that we produced. We've been coming to Woodstock. I think I was on the first documentary jury. So it's kind of fun every year that we can to be here.
Yay.
And the leaves are really nice today.
I know, we brought the weather for you guys.
Hi, I'm Ryan White. I have a production company called Tripod Media with my best friend since I was little kids, Jessica Hargrave, who's in the audience somewhere. That we started when we were little kids, and we still make movies together. And I'm also a director. I made a film here called Come See Me in the Good Light.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Workman. I've had 4 films at Woodstock. My last film was called Secret Mall Apartment, which thank you, which I self-released, and which we'll talk about. And I also have a company in New York City with my biz partner, Rob Lyons, where we do a lot of movie trailers, and we also did the Woodstock trailer this year.
Which is hilarious. You guys have seen it before the films.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina Schmidt-Gordon. I'm a documentary filmmaker. Depending on how you know me, some people know me more as a producer, some as editor, so like filmmaker predator. That's what and I have a film here called Seeds. And I'm happy to be here.
Beautiful movie. So what I have asked these folks is to choose a clip, and we're gonna sort of look at the film. Some of them are trailers, and we're gonna look at the film and sort of determine what they're gonna tell you what their goals were for the movie. Maybe beforehand. Some of these films took a really long time to make, maybe sort of retrospectively, and then we're gonna unpack a little bit about how they are able to achieve those goals, but also maybe just, like decide if they've gotten there already, I guess. So maybe, I think we'll start with Sabrina. Tim in the back is gonna be our AV man person. So Sabrina for seeds, please. So good. Please see this movie, and please see it in a movie theater if you can. So, Sabrina, when you came on as a producer with Brittany, what was the conversation like around what was going to happen with the film when you were done?
Well, when I first started working with Brittany, I started working on the project in 2019, and we had no conversation about what was going to happen when it was done. It was like, how are we going to make it and raise money for it? What I found really, the way I met Brittany is she was in a fellowship or something like that, and she was like, it's her first feature film, by the way, and so it's a really remarkable achievement. So she'd never made a feature film before, and she needed a producer. Someone introduced us, and that's kind of like how we started. And so when she shared some footage with me, when I'm trying to decide like what projects I'm going to work on, I look at them in terms of like, what can this do? What can this contribute to the landscape of like storytelling and this like sort of like the social issues that we're dealing with in a new way? And like also, how do they like also as a Black woman, I think often about like identity and like how do we disrupt myths and understanding and bring some complexity and nuance to how people understand Black life, and and I found like when I saw the footage and I just felt that it was an opportunity to do something really different, and I think also that like she had such a unique and very specific sort of aesthetic, and that's the other thing in terms of like the medium. I think about like how can we disrupt this idea that I don't know why it still exists, that people think of documentary as like talking heads and da-da-da, and this is something that it has like nothing like that. So it's really about the storytelling, but it's an entry point, a really like unique entry point into a world and into all these attendant issues that that it touches on in their day-to-day lives. So that was sort of like the range of things I hope to do with this one movie.
And then when the film garnered a lot of critical success at Sundance, which already was a huge win. To get into Sundance is a massive, it's a huge thing. It's not a guarantee. When did you start shifting that conversation to how do you get the film out there? How do you get people to watch it?
Right, so part of what I wanted to say before, thank you for reminding me of your actual question, is that, raising money for the film was like really, really challenging because we have a film that we can't tell like the funders like this is what's going to happen, this is what it's going to be, and it was really like an artistic take. It was like it's old people are the protagonists, it's black and white, it's like 2 hours long, everything that we're not supposed to do. So this was like so even like being able to make the film, that was kind of like really an overwhelming kind of like overriding thing. So then to get into Sundance is really validating. Now in terms of like how we're going to get people to see it and so on, it's a kind of a complicated story because we also were involved. We raised money for the film like through grants, but there was also public television money, which I don't know how much folks know about this. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but that can really impact what you can do in terms of distribution. So we were trying to figure out how to make that work, and we actually had come up with something where it looked like it was going to work, but like it actually fell through at the last minute. And that's a larger conversation about like public television, public money, and all the things that were going on. But we're just thinking really creatively as much as we can to like figure out how to like make it happen. And I'm happy to get into the weeds, but I don't know.
Do you think if you would do it again, you would adjust when you started thinking about how people are going to see this film? Now that you've had this experience of this super successful, critically beloved film, but maybe more of a challenge to get it into front of audiences?
I think, and I hate to keep harping on the fundraising, but like I feel like I might have thought about the fundraising differently.
Right. Okay.
So that I would have options that I just simply don't have.
Right. So understanding kind of early that, knowing early that part of the fundraising might be for distribution is something we are thinking about all the time. And actually, I've actually started coming up with a number that if you have a budget and your budget is $750,000, then a third of that budget should be raised to allocate for what happens after your premiere. So most of the time you get these budgets and they take you through a Sundance premiere that includes a publicist, but it doesn't take you any further than that. So part of what we need to be thinking about as producers is that a third of the budget needs to now be allocated towards a what-if situation or a plan A, which is part of how the film is gonna come out after you have a premiere or as part of your world premiere. So thank you so much for
Can
that.
I just
Should
add
include
something?
payment for people who are like on the road.
100%.
Right. And I just wanted to add, like, since there's a lot of documentary filmmakers here, and like if you get money from public television with the budget, it doesn't even include that.
Yes.
Because it's just about the broadcast,
Right.
right? And so, yeah.
So some of this is also about changing upwards,
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
just like taking figuring it out for ourselves, and then being like, this is how we're going to do this, and these are what these line items look like.
Yeah.
And actually, Julie, you bring up a good point. When you do direct distribution and you're sending filmmakers on the road for a year, because that's what it takes. How are they going to pay their rent? How are they going to, have childcare? How are they going to sort of do these things? And so some of that is very early stages, I think. I don't think people are putting it in yet, but so that's part of sort of this learning experience and developing new sort of paradigm here. So Geeta, I'd love if you could show your clip, your trailer, and we can talk about that journey. So Tim, Geeta's clip, please. Come see it, Bearsville. If you haven't seen this yet, you have to see it, and seeing it on a big screen is really lucky, and especially with Geeta afterwards. So thank you for this film. I got a chance to see it at full frame, and it was electric in the room. What were the conversations that you all had before you started making this?
Sure. So this film actually came to myself and my team through a family connection. So Ajika Owens, who's the reason we made the film, was a friend of my family. So Nakan Kwantu, my producer, who's in the back of the room wearing a baseball cap, and he's also as young people say, my life partner. Two of our family members were close to Ajika. They were good friends with her. So when this event happened, we were involved trying to keep the story in the news. We were involved with the family for many reasons. I don't want to give away too much. But and then about 2 months after this incident, which is detailed here, we got a bunch of the body camera footage that had been received, but by the family lawyers. And that's when I realized there might be a film. We, and Nakan and I discussed it, and we did go out to, there was 30 hours of this type of material. And the desire to make the film was both grief work for us, but also we felt really compelled to tell this story. And if you come see the film, you will understand why. But we did take it out, or I took it out to a couple places trying to, seeing if someone would be interested in raising money. We cut together, as people do, like a scene or two, and took it out. And the response we got was that this would be a great true crime procedural. And that was not the film I wanted to make. I did not want to make something that felt like a very rote kind of true crime piece. I understand, to me, this was a film. Obviously, it's a film about a crime, but the idea of making something that sort of fell into that, and there's absolutely space for that, to like the Discovery ID type of motif was not what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a cinematic. I'm the director, so I wanted to make a cinematic, artistic piece that sort of pushed boundaries of the medium. that was not well received. Everyone was like, "What are you talking about?" And then
Cinematic?
yeah,
Wait,
but
what
we
is that?
did get a little bit of development money from Peacock, who at the time Rachel Smith, who saw potential, but she gave us some development money. But what we did instead is we used that money for the edit. Because so we did not develop the film through that. We put it towards the edit. And we also got partners in SOB Productions and Park Pictures who gave us a little bit of money. And my company, Message Pictures, which is with Lisa Payne and Sam Pollard, we put in a little bit of money and we made the film. And it was it's a very independent film made by, just a few of us for very little money. And we got into Sundance. So we kind of had the traditional, even though we made the film independently for nothing, we did have the experience, which is
The fairy
somewhat
godmother
unusual,
experience.
of going to Sundance, having a premiere, and then we got an offer from Netflix. Now, what I will say is when the offer from Netflix was something that I was actually, we had a meeting, and they said that they have a large crime audience they could push this to. And I was immediately offended, because I was like, what? How dare you? This is not, this is a premium doc, and I had all these issues. And then about 20 minutes after that conversation, I was like, am I an idiot? I was like, no, this is not, of course, again, there is a bigger, we want this film to have reach, but also the family wants to try to implement gun reform. They want this to be a tool to implement gun reform and also to change stand your ground laws. And but who do we need to reach to do that, right? And so Netflix ended up, for us, I was like, okay, I need to swallow some of my own biases and my own issues. And if this can be a Trojan horse to reach the audience we need to reach, I'll take it. This is what the conclusion I had to come to, and I did it quickly. And so since then, we have been in partnership with Netflix, which allows us an audience that, again, we would not otherwise have access to. And there's an impact campaign that goes along with this film, tied to that mandate of trying of gun reform. So together, we feel that we can make a greater impact with this way. I also just want to say quickly, we were able to also give the lion's share of the money that came to us to the family. Yeah. So that also, the deal enabled us to do that. So
that's amazing. Yeah, totally up for that. I think that the point that you're making about what is the ROI on quote unquote change, right? We talk a lot about in our daily conversations, both with my partner and some of our distribution folks, is we used to talk about impact as you partnered with an organization and the organization used the film as a tool, but there was never really a metric that you could say the ROI on impact is X. We've spent this money and this is what we get. And now I like to think about impact as audience development. And the bigger your audience reach, the more people who are talking about it, the better experience they're having watching it, either in a theater, at an event, or at a film festival. So how is this experience kind of partnering with Netflix, but also understanding that the reach for this is going to be, frankly, enormous? How has that sort of changed your outlook on impact itself?
Well, I think what is really interesting is that from the beginning we've had the impact campaign around this story started almost outside of the film. An executive producer on this film, who is one of our relatives, Takima Robinson, works in philanthropy. She's an activist and organizer. So she was immediately, they started a fund called Standing in the Gap for families impacted by gun violence and racial violence. So standingthegapfund.org. And so that was happening as we were making the film. And we understood that somewhere along the way we would meet. meet, in partnership. But I think the campaign came first, which was really interesting. So the film has become this incredible tool for that campaign, which is to provide support, immediate support for families that are impacted by gun violence or racial violence. And so that, I think for us, having that lens of the campaign that was ongoing as we made the film, and then again the intersection and the partnership, when we were at Sundance, we were thinking about those things already.
Very important.
So the impact campaign being hand in hand with us made it, it affected our choices. It really impacted what we were doing, and now the reach that the film has again impacts the campaign. Right. So it's been a really holistic process. Totally. Which for me, I haven't had that. It's always that the campaign starts after the film. If you have, as soon as the film rolls out, and then you figure it out. But we've been able to partner, and that's been really positive.
Yeah. Early and often, right? Early and often. Find your audience, find them early, find them often, meet them where they are. That's so wonderful. It's beautiful. So come tonight, we're going to show it. See it in the movie theater. Maybe we'll do Jeremy Workman. Do you want to, we'll cue, if we can cue Jeremy's, it's not technically a clip, right? It's a
promo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Promo for
It's like 70 seconds or something. Thanks. So let me first explain why I chose this clip, because I think that's part of one of the things that I wanted to sort of talk about, which is the clip is, I think, very much shows our attitude with how we've been approaching the film. It's very it's very direct to audience. We're leading with, it's aggressive in a way in terms of the marketing. We're leading with our strengths. One of our strengths was we had an executive producer that people recognized. So we built a clip around the fact that it was an executive producer that people knew. There's no film festival laurels. There's no critic quotes. There's none of that in this piece. Obviously those are great qualities, but it was sort of our approach was not so much about that. Our approach was about connecting directly, face to face with audiences. And that was always our approach with the film. Yeah,
maybe you could start there, because
Sure.
I think what's the wonderful and unique thing that I was very interested in. So there was a little overlap between Jeremy releasing Secret Mall Apartment and Gary Hustwood, Emily Rothschild, and I releasing Eno. And we were kind of overlapping, and so I had my eyeballs on what you guys were doing.
And I was very inspired by how you guys were releasing Eno.
So
yeah.
that idea of 250 dates.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. Why so many?
So we, with Secret Mall Apartment, we decided to self-release it. And this wasn't a case of oh, shoot, nobody is interested in the film. Or,
Plan B, yeah.
Yeah, this was not the case at all. It was very much our intention to take control of the film and go and find the audience and not rely on the gatekeepers. Nothing wrong with gatekeepers, but just not rely on them to tell us if the movie was worth releasing. I've always felt like sometimes distributors and the industry, they kind of gaslight you a little bit into thinking that your film won't be seen or doesn't have value. So we immediately just wanted to get rid of that right off the bat, and just so we decided very early on to self-release it. We kind of engineered our whole campaign around that. We didn't so much, we were talking to distributors, but we didn't think their deals were good. And we thought they were sometimes...
Relatable.
What's that? Yeah.
Relatable.
Sometimes we thought they were almost predatory, and we just kind of were not into that at all. So instead what we did is we very much kind of tried to flip the script a little bit. So we self-released it. We invested a sizable amount, and I'm sure that's what you guys have also done with like Eno and whatnot. We invested, 6 figures into a release, but that ultimately the revenue was 7 figures. So it turned out to be really worthwhile and smart in that approach. Yeah.
Totally. I mean, you guys got to 1.4 million in your theatrical. That's bananas. Like that's amazing. That's incredible. Like we got just under you, I think. But talk to the people though about like the work. Like where did you go? What did you do? Who did you book it? Like get into the details.
So we in terms of the release of the theatrical release?
Yeah, like when you decided.
Yeah, we were sensing that we had a film that audiences really loved, and that was also made the decision easy for us. You know, if it was I've had other films that have played here that are not the same kind of audience-friendly films and are tougher sells, but with this particular film, we saw that there was an opportunity, so we raised money. We then, there's all these, people involved in distribution. Some of you probably know these worlds, but we hired a booker, we hired a publicist. We just kind of like took it out of the hands of what a distributor would do so that we could sort of own the whole, the process, and that we were also, it allowed us to be much higher in terms of on the profit share and the revenue share. So this wasn't anything that we invented. I mean, Gary has been doing this for all his films and a lot of other filmmakers as well. But we kind of looked at how the distribution landscape has really changed. It's really difficult to get some of those deals. They're not great. I don't even think, no offense to anyone in the room, if you're in distribution, I don't even think they're that great at their jobs. I really don't.
Here we go.
So, so it's like you start realizing like, wow, okay, well, with the proper team and bringing on the right people, you could probably just do better. So that.
Well, your film better than anybody, right? I think that what you're talking about is really like a picks and shovels thing. Like, don't go after the gold, sell the picks and shovels. Like, you're gonna get more return by having the tools for you. So, did you ever feel though, like at the beginning when you were first booking it and you weren't successful yet and you didn't have 250 screens, were you like a little bit like, this sucks and why did I decide to do this? It's so much work.
No, because I think we always sensed that like, this was still I make documentaries and I try to keep the budgets low. So we always sense that even if we just kind of hit a single or, maybe we could hit a double, that it would still really be advantageous to us. So, we set our bar low. We definitely were able to exceed that, but we set our bar low, and that was part of, I think, the vision from the beginning of the process.
Right. I love the idea of talking about scale, and I think one of the traps of this myth is that you can hit the lottery. And people still win the lottery. They still get Powerball and they're $85 million, millions in dollars. But it's not very often. And so what can we do as filmmakers that creates scale? And I think some of that is maybe putting value not only back into the direct connection with the audience, but also being very mindful of how we're making films. Like, Gary and I talk about what the $100,000 budget looks like all the time. Like, how can you make a documentary for $100,000? We have not yet come up with the answer, but open to ideas. Okay, I would love, maybe we could show Ryan this beautiful trailer that just dropped. Is that, okay. Tim, can you play Ryan's clip, please? I dare you not to cry when you watch this movie. I double dog dare you. So I think, Ryan, you also have an interesting origin story with this film and how you are able to sort of been able to connect to a larger audience with it. Do you want to break it down for us?
Yeah, there was definitely no early and often with this one. I was thinking while I was watching this trailer, which I'm sure we'll get to later in this panel. It's obviously a lull in the industry, especially in the last couple years. But as I was watching that trailer, I was thinking, like, thank God for that lull, because it allowed Jess and I to just really follow our hearts with this film. We were striking out in so many ways, and this story just fell into our laps, and we became so addicted to it. And I would like to think we would have still followed it had we not been in a lull, but the lull really encouraged us just to make something, and make something that we would have made when we were 22 again. It felt like going back to the beginning of our careers. So Andrea Gibson is a spoken word poet. I know nothing about spoken word poetry, did not know who they were, but we know Tig Notaro, the comedian, and have been saying to Tig for like 15 years, bring us a funny idea for a documentary. Tig has pitched us many ideas over the years, some brilliant, some terrible, but one never connected with us. And part of that probably was because we weren't in a lull. And so when Tig called us a couple years ago and said, like, hear me out, don't hang up on me, and she led with the words cancer and poetry, we thought, like, truly what is less funny than the combination of those words? But we love Tig. Tig's hilarious, as you all know. And Tig said Andrea is one of the funniest people I've ever known in my entire life, and the way that they are confronting the end of their life, you probably gathered from the trailer, Andrea had stage 4 cancer. Tig said the way that they're confronting the end of their life, I think, is remarkable. Tig had her own cancer story. So just watch some stuff. Get to know Andrea on tape. Like, I'm gonna send you some performances and some interviews, and call me back. Jess, my best friend since we were little kids, watched first. We basically share a brain. I had kind of written Tig off when I saw the email, thinking like, well, we will never be able to make this, even if this person is interesting. And Jess said, like, there's something magical here. Make sure you watch this stuff today. And 2 weeks later, we were on a flight to meet Andrea. So we had never talked to Andrea, and we showed up at their house, shot that day for 3 days, and Jess, it's very hard to talk about this film, I think, without sounding really cheesy, but we were in tears on our flight back from that, saying, like, we have to make this. And by the way, we had other films going, and those films aren't complete because Come See Me in the Good Light came into our lives last year, and we became, I can't describe it as anything other than an addiction that we felt, and it's such an ironic adjective, I think, to use to describe this film, but I know my whole crew felt it. We felt so alive being around Andrea and Megan, and getting to, whenever we were returning to our own husbands, when we were coming home with this new outlook on life, that we were addicted to being around it. And so Jess and I talk about it a lot. It felt like being film students again, or making our very first films, which we'll get back to because my career goes back to my mid-20s, which is 20 years ago, where we had to make our own films. We had no funding sources in our first couple documentaries. This felt like that, except, like you mentioned, we had executive producers who were powerful, and that was a huge help, namely Tig, and like basically an army of incredible lesbians who fucking
I mean, don't mess with that.
Don't mess with the lesbians. And like Andrea, even though I didn't know who they were, Andrea fans, like Andrea changes people's lives. And she, like, Andrea and Megan, Andrea's wife, is a big part of my film. And so people that had read their stuff or listened to their interviews had been changed by them. And it was finding those individuals, which again was how we made our first films. Like, I knew that non-binary cancer poetry docs were not going to be flying off the shelves of streamers. And I don't even remember if we talked to any, because maybe we talked to Netflix because we've done many films with them. But I knew that they were all gonna say to me, like, that sounds great, Ryan, show us it when it's finished, which is what they say a lot for non-commercial films. And that's understandable, I think. I'm not judging them for not throwing money. And we didn't want to take development funds if we could not. Maybe they would have given us a little bit of money. But Jess and I, because we've been doing this since we were little kids together, we're fine investing our own money for a little bit and seeing if there's something there. And sometimes that's been a waste of money and the story wasn't there, it didn't click in some ways, and sometimes it has paid off. So yeah, this film was very incremental, like fund enough to get to the next stage, fund enough to get to the next stage.
Right. And what
or if any point, did you and Jess turn to each other and say, we can find the non-binary poet comedians in the audience to actually show them this movie? Like before Apple, before any of the like distribution came in, before you had your festival premiere, was there a conversation about that?
No, early and often. I mean, we were so addicted to the story, and I thought, like, Andrea was changing me and changing Jess and changing our editor who had never met, but we still were not even, like, getting into Sundance, like you said, is no guarantee. We were convinced we would get rejected, and by the way, we had made it very fast, faster than any of my documentaries. Part of that was because Andrea was dying, and we were trying to finish before they died, but also part of that was we were trying to make it as cheap as possible because we knew we might not break even, and we wanted to pay our investors back. But it really wasn't until the Sundance premiere, because I knew the Sundance programmers liked it when they let us in, and it was a thrill to get in, and the best phone call of my life was telling Andrea that, like, you might see this film, because the intention from the beginning, the understanding was that our film would document Andrea's death. That was my understanding, that was Andrea's understanding, but that changed while we were editing the film. But it really was the Sundance premiere in an audience. Tig described it later as like, and I was not expecting this. She was like, that played like a Will Ferrell comedy. Like the amount of laughter in the room, like Tig was like, I rarely hear that amount of laughter at my comedy stuff. And so it wasn't until that room, and really even the after party when the executives that I know, because I've worked with most of them, started showing up, where Jess and I were like, oh, maybe the thing we've been feeling translated to them, but that was by no means a guarantee. I think there was a very good chance in our heads, like we loved making this film, but it didn't land the way we wanted to. That would have been okay, by the way. That would have been okay. We would have lost more money probably, but I think that we would have been okay with that, but I would say it was that moment.
Following that idea of a film festival being the way that you discover if you have something, how can film festivals, you've been to so many, you've shown so many films, how can film festivals maybe be more proactive, or for an independent filmmaker, how can they act in sort of a theatrical capacity for folks? Like, do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially with a film like this, probably a lot of films on this panel, Seeds for sure, like I feel like they are vital in that type of way, especially when the non-theatrical market, the theatrical market is diving so quickly. To me, like for Come See Me in the Good Light, and we took a deal with Apple, which is a streaming platform, so we're never gonna have a big theatrical. And so to me, this film festival run is the theatrical experience. For me, for Andrea, while they were still alive, they only got to come to 2 film festivals before they got too sick, but they were showing up on Crazy on Zoom, which we talked about last night, because Jess did a amazing Zoom interview with Leonard Peltier last night. So
Stressful.
Oh yeah, they are stressful. Tech goes wrong all the time. But getting to see Andrea connect with an audience and not just seeing it stream on a television or on a phone, that to me, again, going back to our roots, I haven't traveled with a film like this in so long, because for so many years it was sort of like the golden handcuffs of like having to make the next thing. There wasn't time, and this film is so meaningful to us because of Andrea and Megan, and getting, now Megan, who's a 37-year-old widow, is getting to travel with the film, and it's so meaningful for her. That the film festivals and the one-off screenings that we're doing, they are, at least in our case, they are our theatrical experience. So they're vital. And that's not just Sundance, by the way. That's maybe even more so than Sundance, because Sundance is so industry heavy. Like I love the Salt Lake screening at Sundance, because that's the first time you get a measure of like real people. But to me, my favorites are the regional film festivals.
Like what? Tell us what like,
Full Frame.
Yes,
I mean, I grew up
Full
on Full
Frame.
Frame. True False. Cleveland, I try to go to. Which one? Hot Springs. But like getting to go to those types of audience, I'm from the South, so a lot of the Southern ones, getting to go to those and see how audiences are connecting to it, and getting to watch Andrea and Meg talk with those audiences, I think is really powerful for us.
Yeah, the film festival piece of this and sort of a new paradigm construction is something I continue to think about. And again, I think it's about ironing out like the money of it all. Like, is there a screening fee? What gets paid for when you go? How is there a split on the door? Like those kinds of questions are really just starting to happen, and it's something I think we can generally, like both sides, distribution side, festival programmer side, filmmaker side, like we have to have like a very open-hearted conversation about that, you know, because not everybody has a distributor, or if you are showing for your first time, like we took Eno to Sundance, and one of my other films, Skate Dreams, we premiered at South by Southwest, and for Skate Dreams, I brought every skater and their entourages to the festival. It cost us $45,000 to go to that festival and put everybody up and fly them and have the big bang, you know, presentation that then we never got a deal on that. So, you know, it's that metric still is being ironed out, and I think we need to come up with some better ideas around that, especially if theatrical is going to be less. So I want Julie, I want you to show your clip as well, with the sort of eye towards this in theatrical experience and how it might kind of work in a more marketing landscape. So, Tim, roll the clip. Screening Sunday morning at 11 a.m. at the Orpheum. Come join us. Watch the movie.
Please do.
So we wanted, let's continue sort of on this idea of like non-theatrical, theatrical, and sort of how we can connect audiences via the film festival experience, or how marketing our films even when they go on platforms. Because I think a lot of filmmakers, I'll just sort of preface that, I think a lot of filmmakers are concerned that even if they do get the deal, the big deal, that you may disappear. You may not be able to find an audience even when you have the possibility. So how can we be marketing savvy in terms of that?
I don't get to tell my origin story like everyone else. Yes, the thing that happened with this film is Isabel Castro, who's the director, who also directed Mija, which is a wonderful film. She grew up Selena was very much part of her life growing up as an icon. I think what happened with this film that was interesting is that Selena has obviously every time you go on a plane, there's like the Jennifer Lopez Selena movie, and she has survived as this icon incredibly for 30 years, like on a level that maybe you don't know, but she has. It's kind of next level in a big way. She and her family had a really interesting story. Everybody just talks about the fact that she was murdered at very young, in her early 20s, which is the horror of it all for them and what they've had to survive, the family. But there's this incredible story of her growing up and developing, and her voice and her joy, and the family creating this band together and really going out into the world in a way that was profoundly joyful. And so for us, the idea was like, how do you tell that story? And the family opened up their archives and their personal home movies, and her sister Suzette, who is kind of like the keeper of the flame, I guess you would say. And I mean, they have a museum in Corpus Christi that is open like 364 days of the year and has lines out the door. Like, when I say that's next level, it's pretty wild. It's a tiny museum, but it's always full. And it's basically like they opened this vault, essentially, stuff that they didn't even remember. And we were able to go in and kind of create something and also go and interview them now, but to create something that nobody had seen. And this is like when you have rabid fans and they haven't seen something, they get very, very, very excited. So the film premiered at Sundance, and it goes online if it's in competition. It goes on Sundance Online, so anybody can sign up for it. And all of a sudden, it was everywhere. It was pirated insanely. Like, I don't even know how to describe how fast. Like, it was whack-a-mole, you know, it really was. And it was so crazy and intense that they had to pull it, which is the first time they've ever had to pull a film. They had to pull that fiction film also. Yeah, The Gays, yeah.
The Gays also leaked a film with gay sex
Yeah.
in it, yeah.
It was a good film.
Twinless.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So this year had like double trouble. But we were like, oh, wow. And for us, we said, this is a film that should be theatrically released, which is what we had always thought. But we were like, proof. However, there are decision makers who finance films, and even if our exec there totally agreed, it's Universal Music, and they don't think about it the same way. They think like, okay, well, who's going to make the biggest bid, and how's this going to work, and that's how it works. And they fully finance the film, and you know, and these days especially, if you have a film that's fully financed, it's kind of a miracle.
God bless.
And we had worked with them. They were great. We did the Velvet Underground with them and the Donna Summer film and the Apollo. So we really loved them. But we were heartbroken that the film wasn't able to be theatrically released, because for us, we were like, this is the film to take on the road, and to hire a booker and to do what you did, Jeremy, but like not even work with a traditional distributor, but to really go do that. But we couldn't. So when we did go to South by, that screening was amazing. That was like top 5 ever. And I've been doing this woefully long time. But it was like the family came. Then also, Selena's mother had never given an interview, and she was interviewed in the film, which was very painful and very beautiful. And she and the parents came, she and Abraham came, everybody came. And the fans came from all corners of Texas. Like, she is, like, you go into a store and it's Selena stuff in every store in Texas, and when you go in Austin and Houston and wherever. So it was like, there's a bus that they had, like an old bus that they toured around in, and the bus came and everybody was like, Bertha, screaming, and you're like, oh shit, this is crazy. Like, this should just be theatrical in Texas.
Right.
We would do great. So, I mean, in terms of like what that does, the film's gonna come out on Netflix on the 17th. Jesus, I'm really bad at this. 17th of November. And you should really see it in a theater, because it's a lot of fun and the music's great.
Sunday morning, people. Sunday.
Actually, we have a really cool trailer that's gonna hit this week, but because it's not out yet, we were not allowed to show it, which I was very grumpy about. But it will be out this week, and they did a great job on it. And it sold to Netflix, and it sold for a lot of money, and everybody was making money off of that, was happy. Sadly, we were very low in that waterfall. And there we are. We're going to have it on Netflix. It's going to reach a very wide audience. But for us, it's also like, we want to be, like Isabel's been going, you know, we were in Mexico City, we were in Morelia. We've been in a lot of places in Texas. We've been at Rooftop in New York. We're here. We're trying to get out far. Full Frame, which is also one of my favorite festivals.
Yeah.
We've really been trying. Miami, it won an audience award. And it's been doing quite well, and it's been winning awards, and it's had this wonderful festival momentum. But then it's going to go on Netflix, and then we're really hopeful that this base audience, which is very wide and which we can connect to, we will make sure that they're connected to. And the family, particularly, will make sure. I can see your outline. Daniel Torres. Is that you? So Daniel produced the film, did an incredible job, and who just is late because he had to check the DCP. Isn't that a bitch?
Producer never sleeps.
No.
I think that what you're saying, though, about connecting directly, like sometimes your film is regional. Sometimes your film is about making the biggest bang in the smallest bucket, so to speak. And I think that's sort of part of what I want us to reimagine, is that like sometimes the value that we place on success and this idea of success is really based around money. And that, I think, puts us in a really awkward position, because that's not historically what documentaries have always been about.
I mean, look, there was a boom that happened that was very unrealistic The streamers propelled
Which was
it.
5 years.
Yeah.
Out of how many decades of documentary film? Like,
Absolutely.
Let's just say that again.
And
it was 5 years of money.
And maybe a lot of us had work, but most of us didn't get $20 or $30 million for their film. There were very few that did, and yet the attitude was like everyone was going to get it. That was the next thing, and just keep working and make your budgets higher. And you work with an entity that's telling you to pay the editors more, and the next time you work with them, like, you're paying your editors too much. It's a total mind fuck, this whole thing that happened, really, if you went for it. I mean, there's a lot of people that didn't go for it.
Right.
And Pam, Paco, you like stuck on your way.
Yeah.
You showed your films to people. You got them to people. You make this incredible impression with your films. And you didn't buy into that. But it was very tempting to buy into it in a lot of ways. It was really hard to say, okay, no, we're going to stay with the films we want to make.
Yeah.
And we're going to stay true to it. I mean, don't you all feel like it was like this?
Well, think about it in a historical context. Like, what was happening when they were making ethnographic films? What was happening when they're making, like, Julia Reichert was making feminist films? Like, the values shifted. And I would love for you guys to talk about, maybe, assuming that you have a sustainable thing and you can feed yourself and house yourself, like, what would be the value now that you would love to hold up that wasn't necessarily the biggest paycheck?
Maybe I'll just start because I had no, delusion that I was going to get anything in this golden, burst or whatever. It was just like Tuesday. I mean, it just wasn't like a thing. So for me, the way I've always measured success, and this is the kind of conundrum, the success of the film is the impact it has in local communities and how people respond. Like with Seeds, that's been on the festival circuit. I mean, when we show it, when we have these theatrical screenings, people are so moved by the film, and they always come, they write me, they email me, they come up to me after that. So it's kind of like a film, ideally it needs to be like a communal experience, and to me that is definitely a win. And when I think about doing work, about my films, I always think about impact at the same time from the beginning of making the film, because that's kind of like why I do it. And so I try to think about impact, maybe on a larger scale. Like sometimes we think about what would be the legislative transformative thing that could happen. But that's a big ask. But then there's also in the communities that are impacted by what we're talking about, who's this story is their story. I remember I made a film called Quest it's not even a few years back. Thank you.
It's a great film. Great film.
In 2017, that's also kind of a longitudinal films for over 10 years. And I remember doing an impact event in Philadelphia where the film was, where we filmed. And someone came to one of the screens and one of my impact events, because I did a thing around healing and art and trauma. And someone came and told me that they brought their son with them because their other son had committed suicide, and how the event that we did around trauma and art was the first thing that he was open to. So to me, that's
successful.
Success. Yeah, for sure. But and we have a lot of experiences like that. And I also try to think, you're saying about I always think about measurable goals, which are beyond how many people come. It's kind of were we able to change this thing or create this opportunity or so, so I try to do that as much as possible. But the challenge is I have those kinds of really rewarding outcomes and value, but it's so but you need money to do it. And it's really, I haven't been able to figure out quite how to, it might sound a little crass, but monetize impact in a way, because there was so much more we could have done and so much more that we wanted to do. We did again, with Quest, we did a hackathon where we brought the community together with these volunteer, software writers and whatever, for them to come up with like the community issues that they wanted to solve and find technological solutions for it. Right. So we had all this really interesting conversation, but we couldn't execute it at the end. You know,
because you
didn't
have the budget.
Yeah.
So I want to open it up to questions because we've got about 30 minutes left. So think of your questions, not comments, please. Although if you have comments, it's actually fine. But what I want, maybe actually Jeremy could approach this, because I think what we've been thinking about is that you can make money when you have full movie theaters. Like you can make money, and that money can help you do other things. So, how do you monetize impact?
You know, I think for my perspective, I was less thinking about impact. I was thinking about having audience see the film. Which, you know, I've worked in documentary for many years and have worked in different capacities as well as marketing and got to work on Quest. But I think I'm looking at it in terms of trying to get people to see the films and to make money on the films, God forbid. So that's always been a little bit of my approach. And then I think that starts also in terms of what projects I'm interested in and what I'm looking to do, and not necessarily, you know, pander to something, but just trying to make something that audiences can see and would want to see. So I think that's how I'm measuring it, is even if it's a small film, finding a small audience and really, you know, being kind of aggressive about trying to get people to see the film. And with that said, I think there is, even in a challenging marketplace, there's still a lot of opportunities to make money in documentaries, even if you don't make a big sale to a big streamer. There's a lot of ways where it's just, there's so many different kind of revenue streams, and that's something that we look at on, you know, with all the projects that we're doing. My producer Matthew's in the back, and you know, we are looking at all kinds of parts to that equation so that we're thinking about how to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not talk, like brass tacks, make the money.
Can I add something? I'm trying to I'm formulating it as I'm listening, because there's something that I wanted to kind of articulate. Like, we're talking about impact as one kind of value, and the number of people who get to see it, and then we're talking about the marketing. Those things are not mutually exclusive, because even though you can make a difference in the particular community and so on, the marketing and people knowing about the film and winning awards has currency in and of itself. And so it's I remember when I was invited to be a Women at Sundance Fellow, and Julie was one of my mentors. You get two mentors. So I wanted Julie, and the other one I wanted people were asking oh, I wanted to work with Martin Scorsese, whatever. I was I want to learn marketing. And they didn't know
we don't
what
have
to
that.
do with that. Because I recognized that if people are not seeing the film, it makes it that much harder to get it to the people to make the difference, you know? And just in being able to tell the story about the film is really important. And so speaking of Julie, I'm thinking about Victim Suspect, when they a film that we worked on together, and they talked about putting it in true crime. And I remember Nancy and I went on the phone. We're excuse me.
You and I had that same conversation. I actually talked to Sabrina about this film, and I was tell me how this works. What does it mean? But you explained that it's no, it can be marketed to a certain, it's a certain
people who want that, but then they're going to change when they see it.
And it can still be premium.
Exactly.
It can be both.
Exactly.
You were it doesn't mean that it's exclusively, but you talked me off that.
No, totally, because I realized oh, they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
It was the name. They had a name, that Victim Suspect. We were Victim Suspect?
Yes!
What are you insane? We wanted to call it the Chilling Effect, which had a lot of meanings to it. And we were so unhappy, and we came up with a million names, and then in the end, we're actually, they kind of know their audience. So in this case, and now it just rolls off your tongue, victim/suspect.
Yeah.
That sort of continuum, I'd like to throw the idea of awards into it, because welcome to Oscar season, everyone. I have a very specific opinion about awards, which is not popular, but people come to us all the time and they're like, we want to win awards because it will be good for our careers. And I'm kind of like, but will it? Like, is it going to change if you win a Critics' Choice Award? So
Definitely not that one.
Right.
No.
ouch. You heard it here first, people.
Shade.
That's the best. That's the best shade tonight, right? Right. Okay. Good. I like that Julie got it. No. Let's have a serious conversation about it because there's budgets to think about. There's the campaigns, which I don't really want to get into the machinations or throw tomatoes at that because it's kind of boring now. What is the impact? First of all, if a filmmaker wins an award, that is successful because awards are successful. But in the greater scheme, in this like sort of continuum of audience and impact and money, how do awards kind of land in there? And also, feel free to put your hand up. There's a microphone going around. I want you to have the opportunity to ask these brilliant humans questions too. So, awards, yay, nay?
Yay.
Yay? Okay, great, all right.
Awards campaigns or
No, just the award.
Horrible.
How, I don't want to talk about that. That's another panel. Machinations, the money, all of that crap, like it doesn't matter right now.
I would say that I think, in my experience, if you are, as Sabrina talked about, trying to if the film has a purpose to make an impact about something else, the awards are publicity. It is tremendous publicity for the film, and then oftentimes if there is a campaign behind something, it can help. I mean, I think we all have maybe worked on films that have made a change, have somehow had some piece of making a change in the world. So I think, again, it feels like it has to be a confluence of, the perfect storm for that to happen. But I do think that it can help, So I do think awards are a great publicity machine, and people get on board with the issue. They read about it, they hear about it. There is a film, To Kill a Tiger, that I just want to mention that was nominated for the Oscars. They didn't win, but the filmmaker Nisha Pahuja has this incredible impact campaign, Stand With Her, that is tied, that is aligned with the UN, is also part of, and that nomination really helped. Again, the film was a vehicle, so helped her build this tremendous impact campaign that she's rolling out, and that's another couple of years for her. So it's just, I do think they can have benefit in that way.
And Maite Alberti, who we did The Mole Agent with,
Yes.
Maite, her being nominated for an Oscar was like front page news in Chile. It was huge, and it made a difference for her being able to get funding and being able to get recognition. And I think a lot of times for directors, it's particularly important. And I think like when you get depressed, if you have an award, you can stroke it. But you can't do that with the Critics' Choice because it costs like $1,000 to get that award.
Oh my God! I won a Peabody, and it's in a box and wrapped in bubble wrap. And sometimes I tell my child that I won it as a way in which to get her to listen to me. But that's the only impact that has. And actually, that's not very much. Question? Go ahead. Do we have one in the front? Yeah, go ahead. Just yell it out. We got you.
Firstly, thank you for this panel. Thank you for your work. And each of you showed a clip of a film that had different levels of notoriety before you began. So you were, in a sense, having to build audiences in different ways. But I'm just curious, as the filmmakers, cultivating or building your audience while you're concurrently making the film. And if you could talk a little bit about focusing on the film, but also building your audience at the same time, and how they do or don't complement each other, and how sometimes you just want to focus on the film and not on the other part. You actually want to be sub rosa and make it privately and not have to build expectation, just make the film.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Ryan, do you want to try?
I thought Jeremy might be best. I mean, me personally, I always just want to make the film. I am not good. Like Jess and I were talking about this yesterday. we were talking about Eno, which I had no idea the amount of work put into that. And I did that on my first films because I was 20-something and I had no choice. And it was very rewarding, but it was years after the film came out that I was still working on it to make a little bit of money. We still had side jobs because we couldn't make ends meet. And so now, at this point in my career, I would much rather just make the movie and hand it over, but that can cut both ways. Like sometimes, like this movie I'm making now is a good example, and my movie hasn't come out yet, and I pray that Apple does a good job with it, and I pray that people will watch it on Apple, but that doesn't mean if I came back to this panel next year, I wouldn't say, I wish I'd gone this route, because more people, it's just meaningful to, Andrea's message is meaningful to me, and I don't know if we'll find that. I mean, Geeta's movie came out today, right?
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to see how that film will perform because I think, I just saw it a few weeks ago. It's brilliant. I think it's, it's getting classified as true crime, but it's the perfect type in that type of way where it is the Trojan horse of a film. Yeah. And like if you're measuring impact, actually we made a series called The Keepers in 2017 for Netflix, which was the follow-up, thank you, to Making a Murder. Jess and I pitched that at Catalyst, which is a Sundance forum, as a feature film, and Netflix was making a Murderer, and they came, like Lisa Nishimura was the first person after we came off stage and said like, hey, I think you should make this a series, and I'm making this thing called Making a Murderer. We have Netflix for all its flaws. That is the most impact I have ever had in something I made, which is why I'm so excited to see what happens with Geeta's film on Netflix, especially knowing you're also doing the impact campaign. Like crazy shit happened out of The Keepers. Like it changed the statute of limitations for child sex, because that was also a Trojan horse of a film. It was about child sex abuse in the Catholic Church. There was a little bit of a murder there.
It was amazing.
But Jess and I used to joke, like the tagline should be The Keepers, there will be no answers. Because we were like, it's a murder mystery with no answer, but we're gonna use it as a way to tell the story of trauma of child sex abuse. And it changed so much for that community. And Netflix had a huge impact in that type of way, so.
That's what we're hoping for too. Yeah. So thank you for that.
I want to just add quickly with Victim Suspect. I think similarly, by putting it in like the true crime, it became like a top 10 film for like weeks or maybe months even, and that in turn fed the impact campaign that was being done with it. So
But I think your question was a little more nuts and bolts a little bit. So I'd like to offer this for you. A producer and a film, having a team, it's not called self-distribution. It's called direct distribution. It's a difference. And there are ways in which you can both put your marketing and audience development hat on and put your filmmaking hat on. But the best thing to do is have a great team who can support you in that. So that's my best sort of answer. Also, continue to keep your relationships that you are developing along the way, even if there's interviews or people that will place that you're filming that are adjacent to the subject of your film, like stay in touch, like keep them abreast of what's going on. Get in touch with them when the film is going to premiere at a film festival or wherever when you're going. It's nobody said this wasn't a lot of work, okay? Like that's a true crime. I also want to suggest that you go to John Reese's panel, which is tomorrow, Saturday, 3 o'clock on Saturday in here, because John will have this is John, he's a distribution guru, incredible human, and will give you a good list, a good way in which you can kind of just check off tactics, strategies. So anyway, shout out John Reese. Is there another question? Or okay, go ahead.
Hi, thank you all for your great words. I'm curious about how media consumption is changing for young people, especially with YouTube and TikTok, and how stories are being consumed, and if any of you have thought about what that means for the format of making things, whether you make them as a feature or whether you make even shorter episode series, things like that. And also just like Julie, when your film leaked online, is that good?
Yeah.
Because
great question.
Because
that's a good story.
When something goes viral, that's a real thing.
Richard, it's good if you can stop it at some point. it's bad if it just keeps going and then there's no, I mean, we were worried we couldn't sell the film because the film wasn't sold, and if that buyers were going to be like, well, everybody's seen it, it's on, it's out there, it's already online. But if you can stop that, if you can have it and then stop it, and which took a lot. I mean, Sundance really helped with getting that. They have like some kind of something called some kind of sheriff who comes in and like gunslings it out of everywhere. And basically then we were like, we have a good story now. Yes. For this film.
Proof.
So yes, it was helpful in that way. But if we couldn't have gotten it down, then we wouldn't have been able to sell the film.
The proof of audience, I think, is really important in something, a theatrical, by exploring a theatrical, you can prove to sort of some of these bigger places, this doesn't necessarily answer your question, but you can prove to big places that you have an audience, which is what we're all trying to do. So virality can occur in a lot of different ways. I think Eno is a wonderful example of that, like not to, toot our own horn, but like we had no idea. And when you have people lining up in the rain and pay $40 a ticket, then that's helpful. The short form question though, I think maybe you all want to tackle, because I think it's another thing that's hard to monetize if you're not standing in front of your ring light, like opening a box of a Japanese toy. Like I think there's a short form, yes, no, maybe, I don't know.
No, not right now, but definitely thinking a lot about, the TikTok audience, Gen Z, Instagram. For marketing, we're skewing everything towards that audience, and we're creating content and creating marketing materials that are vertical and that are short and that are all buzzy, potential pieces that could just be shared and for viral purposes. So in terms of our marketing and publicity thoughts, big time. But in terms of my own filmmaking, no, less so. But, I have a new project that I just finished, and it's a global story. So I'm very much paying attention to how YouTube now, a lot of people are looking at as the next place where distribution is going to really be significant. And so those are, I think, being aware of like trends and how things are changing are very important. Most people 25 and under are not seeing documentaries really, and they're not seeing a lot of scripted features as well. So just to sort of be aware of the changing how things are changing with generations, I think is incredibly important for filmmakers today.
Mm-hmm. I'll just say, second what you said in terms of the marketing more so than the actual content, but I would add too that not everything needs to be a feature film, so people can think, I think we
Say
should
that
be
again slowly.
Not everything needs to be a feature-length movie. Yes. So I think we have to the extent to which that we're kind of stuck in that mindset, I think that needs to open up. But that doesn't mean that you don't I have a 2-hour black and white film about old farmers. It's great. That's what it is. If that's not your jam, you don't have to see it, but I wouldn't make it any other way. But I don't think every single thing has to be, and that 90 minutes long. So
I do want to say that I think what is hard, the short form, obviously, I think it's about the story. For me, it's always does the story merit a feature? Yeah. Or could it be shorter? And as a director who used to be an editor, less is always, I think of the less is more. It's better to leave your audience wanting more. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the challenges that we face now is the market for shorts. If the market for features is rough, the market for shorts is even harder. So the finding distribution or outlets, and again, you can always there are so many ways to do it. You can always put your film up, you can, as you said, direct distribution. But I think with shorts, you have to sort of, again, it's so much better to have a powerful short than a mediocre feature. But I think, thinking about how you get it out into the world is important. How are you going to market it? I think there's a number of beautiful shorts here at Woodstock that still don't have distribution, and I'm connected to some of them, and that's something that we're having to think about. How do we get these out there?
Can you talk about YouTube a little bit? I'm not sure if there's more questions. We don't have a ton more time, but I think the film, like, you know, you were saying you had to sort of get out of your own head a little bit about being called a true crime. You know, like how are we all feeling about YouTube as a very valid, very premium, very lucrative mode of distribution for our films?
I actually haven't done it. No, I haven't done that yet, so I don't have the experience. If any of you have the experience. No. So we might be,
okay.
You might have to answer that question.
Next year, that's our panel, guys. We're going to talk about YouTube.
But I do know, I will say that I know, like, there's, like, again, I believe it's Frontline, and there's, you know, there's a YouTube, for the World Channel, they were releasing on YouTube, they had the streaming, and then they would, you know, and then YouTube. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, 1,000 Cuts, which is about journalist Marie Ressa in the Philippines, who was being indicted by Duterte, the president, you know, as a political retaliation. And we had a deal with Frontline to distribute. They have a YouTube channel that's available in the Philippines. There's not a lot available in the Philippines that's not controlled by the government, and they put it on there even though it hadn't premiered here, and so many people saw it before it was taken down, before it was forced to be taken down, and that we also really did want, like, that was being pirated in a positive way, and that made a huge difference at this moment in her trial. So that kind of a power, especially, I mean, because we really haven't talked about international, but international is so critical and reaching in terms of reach of our films, but that was a moment that they were able to say, okay, we're going to put aside everything and put this up, and it was it made a huge difference. So I think that's YouTube that can do that.
I love that Julie's become like the voice of strategic pirating.
It's my new title.
Strategic pirater. I think we have no more questions, no more time for questions, but I want to just wrap up by thanking these incredible humans for participating. I want you to continue to make movies. Just make them smarter, be brave about it, be thoughtful about it, have goals. We've got your back. You're going to go out and do great stuff. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thank you.